Hello, Dr. Cinema and Quachi again. Hey, so I'm doing a new series out on this channel. I'm calling it the Quarterly and Full Review Reports. Cinema is as much a business as it is an art form. Oftentimes, those two can contradict each other more often than they complement each other. So I'm going to do like a quarterly report for cinema, but I'm going to try to make it in a more art form style of quarterly reports. So instead of focusing on the box office numbers or only focusing on the box office numbers, I'm going to be trying to look at the quality of films that have happened in the past either 3 months or the entire year. And for this first episode, it's the first quarter of 2018, January through March, because there are 12 months in a year. 3 times 4 is 12. So anyway, January was a quiet month. I mean, there was really no film that stood out as significantly good or significantly bad. I mean, the only film that I even bothered going out to check and see was Den of Thieves, played by Gerard Butler. And even then, it was what I expected it to be. Not, not surprisingly good, but not surprisingly bad either. And I really didn't hear anyone talk about any film that really stood out in either way. So January was surprisingly quiet, which, considering how January is usually perceived, is good, I suppose. Now let's take a look at February, because there are some standouts. Honestly, there were more films in February that disappointed me than there were that actually pleased me. Two such movies were Winchester. It had the potential of being something really unique, but it became your average horror film. Actually, below average. It's just really stupid. And then, of course, The Cloverfield Paradox, a film that was originally supposed to have a theatrical release, but then Paramount decided to just give to Netflix, which just announced that they're going to release it right after the Super Bowl on the day of the Super Bowl. So those two are a couple of the films that really were subpar. And to be honest, there were more films in February that were subpar than there were ones that actually exceeded my expectations. But of course, there were two. There was obviously Black Panther, a MCU superhero film that really upped the game for superhero movies. I mean, yes, it did. Yeah, Quachi, it did break a lot of box office records, but also brought a new level of quality to superhero films. You know how back in 1989, uh, the film Batman really showed audiences that superhero movies can be dark and mature and made for more grown up audiences? And then you remember back in 1998 when Blade had to do that all over again? Well, that's sort of what Black Panther did. It showed that superhero movies can have real human stories and characters to them, as seen through the villain Eric Killmonger. And while it certainly had its flaws, it was definitely a big step up from a lot of other recent superhero films. And one film that actually, in my opinion, did better in terms of quality was the Natalie Portman led film Annihilation. A film that I admit did remind me a little bit of 2001 A Space Odyssey. It was really more a film that really left you with questions, and I mean that in the best way possible. And a film that can make you think and question stuff definitely deserves a mention. And I was really pleased with the visuals and really what happened and what unfolded in the story. So that was February. Oh wait, one more film that came out in February was the direct to DVD film Hellraiser Judgment, the 10th 10th installment of the Hellraiser series and the sixth to be direct to video. And I'm pleased to say I think it's a step in the right direction for the horror franchise. Hellraiser is one of those horror franchises that began in the 80s and have produced a lot of sequels, most of them being subpar. And so it fits along the ranks with Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween. So it's pleased to see that it seems like they're trying to do something different to move it into a new direction, which I appreciate. And now it's time for March. There was game night, which was entertaining. But then there was also Tomb Raider, the one of two major video game movies to come out this year. And Tomb Raider, it made me question whether or not the video game movie curse sticks right now. Yes, I know, Quachi, the story was fairly standard. Some of the characters weren't that well developed. But Alicia Vikander, she nailed it, and there was some fun action. And I think there's more good than there was bad in this film. Of course, whether or not there still is a video game movie curse partly depends on how well Rampage does, starring Dwayne Johnson, coming out in a few weeks. So we'll revisit that when that film comes out. And let's see. There's a movie that came out in March that is currently at my number one worst film. The worst film I've seen so far. The Netflix original, Game Over, Man. I'm not really going to speak a whole lot about Game Over, Man, because chances are I'm probably going to cover it in a future video. But basically, there's nothing to the story that even makes it average, let alone decent. I know that doesn't really get specific, but that's really what I say. And then, of course, I can't end this quarterly review without talking about the most recent release, Ready Player One. I already did a mini review, so you can check out more specifics for that. But ultimately, I decided that the visuals were great, the action can be fun, but the story was standard. It's harmless, it's still fun to watch, but it's nothing really new or groundbreaking or anything to really put in the cinema history books. So that's the end of the quarterly report for. So that's the end of the January. No. Let me start that. It's the end of the first quarter for 2018. And overall, I'd say it's average, maybe even a little bit above average, due to hits such as Black Panther, Annihilation, and even a little bit because of Tomb Raider. But ultimately average because honestly, there were a lot more films that disappointed me than there were those that really made me happy. So it kind of evens itself out. But I'll look ahead at the second quarter. We have Infinity War. We have Deadpool 2. I think even in June, The Incredibles 2 comes out. So maybe that'll be entertaining. Basically, we'll be getting a lot more superhero films. But we'll also be getting some of the more smaller films like A Quiet Place, Super Troopers 2. So I think the second quarter will end up being a little bit better than the first quarter. But that's what I have to say about this video. What do you guys think of this new series? Let me know down below and subscribe. And Dr. Cinema and Quachi, can't wait to see you guys next time.